Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, I'm going to talk about cloud computing. But then before we start this topic, let's just think about, ourselves when we talk about computers. What is the first thing that comes to you when you talk about computers? Your laptops, right? Your mobile phones, your iPad and, tablets and stuff. So these are form of a computer. So when you decide that you want a computer, like your laptop or something, you go to a shop and you tell them like what kind of a laptop you need, right? So you tell them I want to buy a laptop for gaming purpose, or I want to buy a laptop because I travel a lot and I want to use it while I travel. So it should be like having a long battery life. It should have good network connectivity, like Wi-Fi and stuff. It's gonna have like 1 TB of storage. It needs to have i5 processor because I don't want to go for i7 or i9 processor in my laptop because that's gonna be like too expensive. So I go for i5 processor, and then I need Windows operating system. Likewise, you give specifications and you buy a laptop which suits your budget, isn't it? And also it suits your requirements. So this is basically what we call it as a physical asset. So this laptop is a physical one which is occupying a space in your room, and it occupies that space, and you cannot access it by going there physically and typing the laptop in the laptop keyboard, or if you're using external keyboard. So that's basically something called a physical asset, and that exists on your real life, isn't it? Now, when you talk about enterprise, when you talk about a company, you have employees, and these employees will use a system within it. So there are two kinds of the systems. Let's talk about it. I'm not talking about physical laptops or stuff. I'm talking about two types of interfaces. One interface is accessed by your employee, and that interface will go to a tool where the employee will access his provident fund. He will access his salary, pay slip, and stuff. He will apply for leave, HRMS, and all those other stuff like payroll management system. So that kind of a interface that employee will have the communication with the employee, right? So and there is another type of interface, the customer interface, right? So the customer is accessing your product. Now, how you want to project yourself to the customer, you will have a website, right? And that website will have information about your product, where a customer goes in and purchase that product from your website. So there are these two different types of interfaces. Now, when you have such company and you run this kind of a two different interface, one for your employee, one for your, your customers, where are you going to host these? You're going to host this as part of a system, correct? A computer. So the same thing, what the company does is like, rather than you go to a laptop dealer like Apple or HP or whatever the dealer you go to when you are a gamer, or when you want to buy a laptop, the company goes to Dell, HP, or some kind of Apple itself. So they manufacture servers. IBM, they manufacture servers, right? So they go to these manufacturers and ask them, like, I want to host this employee base, and I have thousands of employees. I want to like have like an infrastructure build, a data center build, and I want to like have servers in them, and that will actually host my employee related data. And I want to keep it secure because I don't want anyone else to access my employee data. I only want to access that. So what do? You build this on-prem database. On-prem data center. Now, in this on-prem data center, you're going to have, let's go from the bottom. You're going to have networking interfaces. You're going to have storage built to store data. Servers, which is going to have the processing, which is going to connect with the storage device. If it's external storage device, which is going to connect with your network again. It's going to have an operating system, right? It's going to have some middleware components, a database component, your customer data or your employee data. So you're going to differentiate these two different types of data. And then you're going to have this customer application or your employee application, right? So these are things which you manage as a company, because you are going to manage this data. So either your customer data or your employee data will be managed by you. But for managing that, you need a database, middleware, right? And to host this database and middleware, you need to have operating system which understands what is middleware and database, right? And the operating system needs to run on a server which has CPU, memory, hard disk drive for the initial operating system, and then components to connect to the network cable, components to connect to your storage, external storage devices, right? So it needs to have such items for it to work, isn't it? So that's where the company needs an on-prem database. Data center. Now, when you have the data center, there is a lot of overheads. Like for example, when you buy a laptop, if in that case, so what happens if you buy a laptop? You need to have a place for you to keep a laptop. So you need to buy a desk for it, isn't it? You cannot keep your laptop always on your lap. Your lap will get hot, isn't it? Because when it processes a lot of data, it's going to get really hot. So you need to buy a desk, and you need to put your laptop on top of the desk, and then provide the wiring connection for your power cable, and then provide Wi-Fi for the internet. And then you need to, if you want an external monitor, you need to have this extra cable connected to your HDMI. And then if you need the mouse and keyboard to be handy, and you want an external mouse and keyboard, then you need to connect to Bluetooth. So these are something which is required for you. These are some things which you need to accommodate or allocate. Just buying a laptop doesn't make any sense unless until you have these equipments with you, isn't it? So the same thing for a data center. You need to have space for the data center. Like for example, a data center can be big, can be small as well. So it can be within a company's premises as well, until it is secured from other people's direct access. So you need to create a room, you need to give space for the data center, you need to buy in the caches, like the chassis, where you put in the servers there. You need to buy the network cables, you need to buy switches for your network, right? So likewise, you need to make arrangements, and you need to keep some server administrators. Like you need to hire some people to manage the servers. If there's a power failure, you need to have power backup, right? So likewise, you need to not just buy servers, but then you need to buy infrastructure. So that's where AWS is coming into the picture. AWS is going to release some of the workload which you have over there. Like what kind of a workload you're going to get released from it. So AWS has different services it can offer. So it has this AWS EC2 instance. That's the first thing which came in. It's called infrastructure as a service, where AWS will take care of the data center space, the renting of it, the wirings, administrations, and other stuff. So what they will give is like they will give you a network, they will give you storage, they will give you a server to host. Now, what do you need to bring along with yourself? You need to either, if you already have an operating system license with you, you can bring that. If you're using an open source operating system, you don't really have to do that. Okay, so if you're using like a Ubuntu, which is open source, you can just go ahead with that without paying anything. Or you go to AWS and tell them that I don't have an existing license with any of the operating system, but I want to use Windows for me, or Red Hat Enterprise Linux. When you say the word enterprise, that means there's a charge for it. So what AWS would give you is like they will install the operating system, but they will charge you for the enterprise with whatever they are charging. They're being charged by the Red Hat, so they will charge you indirectly, and it will be part of your billing process. And then you need to bring your own license for your middleware, database, customer data, and customer application. So what you need to manage is less here when you compare with what you had to manage earlier. But it comes with the disadvantage. Let me just quickly tell you the disadvantage. You don't own the servers. That's one way good, where you don't have to buy the servers by giving like a lot of money, or you don't have to pay rent for the data center. So that's one good thing. But the problem is like this service can be accessed anytime by the AWS, okay, people who's inside that. But normally they will be binded to the agreement. They will not do anything illegal there. but still it's not under your supervision, so anything can happen. So that's something you should be aware of. So a lot of banking stuff, they don't put their actual private data in a data center. In a public hosting cloud like AWS or Azure. So either they will take a private, so they will have the dedicated host for it. There's an option for it, because all the servers which you're going to use, right? All these servers which you're going to use, by default it is shared, unless and until you ask them for a dedicated host, which means that one particular host will be dedicated for your operation. So we'll talk about that later. It's not like a simple concept. It's a really advanced concept, but there is a way to do that. So AWS gives you a lot of options like that, but still the server is located in a third-party vendor site, which is AWS, which is Amazon, right? So there are this disadvantage, but there are disadvantages. You don't have to pay for a space. You don't have to buy equipments. You don't have to have the overhead charge of having an employee to manage these servers. So you don't have those overheads as well. So the money is actually saved. And if you're using this for a trial and error purpose, so you can use it for an hour and then turn off the server and it will not be charged for you. So all these operations will be turned off and you will not be charged for it. So there is a good advantage of that also. And there's also another advantage. Like, what if I want to like take the servers and pay in advance? So AWS gives you a nice offer if you're paying in advance. Like, for example, I want to take the service for 3 years. Okay, you pay me 3 years upfront and I will give you a very good price. So it will be much cheaper than the on-demand price. So that's very good, right? So you kind of get deals based on the regions you're selecting, based on the location, you'll get deals as well. So like a lot of advantages are there in infrastructure as a service. Interesting to know about this, right? So on the next video, we will continue this and we will talk about platform as a service, software as a service, and storage as a service. But I hope that you understood so forth that how an on-premises data center is different from a cloud computing, right? Now, why they say cloud? It's because it's in the cloud. You don't actually manage any of those. So it's actually in the cloud. So you need internet all the time. But if you are an on-prem, you don't need to have internet. You can directly go to the data center site, can enter, connect the cable, and you can actually access the item using a monitor. But unfortunately, you cannot do it with a cloud because it's in the cloud. So you need to have internet to connect to the cloud and access the data from the internet. So that's the only issue. But don't worry about it. AWS is basically HTTPS. So all the transaction between yourself and the cloud provider is all secured through the certificate, which is using TLS certificates. Much more in detail on the next video, guys. I'll see you on the next one.